sorry if my face looks a little messed up, but as you know, I had surgery 2 days ago. I had a nice big tumor removed. At any rate, tonight we're continuing with the heritage of the ultimate law of life and death. And basically, we've gone through the first 13 chapters, I believe 12, right?
Yeah.
12. And we've been skipping boxes. We've been skipping the gray boxes since 11. So we're going to go back from 11, 12, and 13 and do all the gray boxes tonight. Okay? So the first one actually starts, this going back into chapter 11. It's going to be like a review. I didn't know how I'd feel tonight, so I didn't want to get into too much. So, and I don't know how long we're going to go. But at any rate, the bottom line is if you go to page 115, that foundational principle of Jigyo Keita, practice for oneself and others, is the first gray box we're going to go over. Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Practice for oneself and others. The Japanese term Jigyo Keita translates into English as practice for oneself and others. Jigyo, literally self-practice, refers to the Buddhist practice for personal benefit and the accumulation of wisdom. Keita, literally changing others, means instructing and converting others so they will embrace Buddhist teachings. It means to practice Buddhism in order to benefit others. Whoa. Now understand that. Jigyo Keita doesn't mean just, we always talk about kudoku, right? Benefits. But in reality, the ultimate benefit, it means to practice Buddhism in order to benefit others. So your practice is for the purpose of showing everybody else how to become equal to you, because you're practicing as a Buddha in your present form. He says, while it can be considered a general term for the Buddhist spirit of altruism, it should be noted that sharing Buddhism with another person and helping that person carry out their practice is the ultimate intent of Nichiren Buddhism. Why? What's the ultimate intent of Nichiren Buddhism?
To make yourself equal? No.
Yeah. In that process, what will occur? Kosen Rufu. So the ultimate intent of Nichiren Buddhism is the establishment of Kosen Rufu. That cannot occur without the propagation of the law. So that's what this is talking about. You actually, if you practice throughout your life to the last moment of your life, what have you validated yourself to be?
A Buddha in your present
Not only a
form.
Buddha in your present form, but very specifically also a Bodhisattva of the earth. Okay? As a Bodhisattva of the earth, then, that means that you made your advent in this world in order to reveal that Buddhahood. Right? So that's what this is talking about. All right? This practice also ultimately enriches oneself. When you're practicing to make everybody the Buddha, then you're ultimately going to be enriching yourself in that same process, right? I mean, that's the way it works. Practice for oneself and others should not be considered two distinct practices. So do you understand? This isn't about my time and my time for others. It's about the general basis of why you're practicing, understanding that it's more deeply, the reason is more deep than just the superficiality of getting benefits or even changing personal problems and that sort of thing. All right? It says, practice for oneself and others should not be considered two distinct practices, but rather two aspects of a bodhisattva's complete practice. Nichiren indicated that the correct practice of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo includes both practice for oneself and practice for others. Going to the next set of pages, page 117, the treasure tower. The treasure tower, as depicted in the 11th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, is a massive and lavishly decorated stupa that emerges from the earth. Massive to the degree that it's like a third of the size of the earth, right? That tower houses many treasures. A Buddha from a distant land called Treasure Purity, who arrives to hear Shakyamuni preach the Lotus Sutra and attest to its veracity, to say, yes, it's absolutely what Shakyamuni is saying is the truth. It is adorned with 7 kinds of gems, which Nichiren Daishonin interprets as symbolizing the 7 treasures or elements of Buddhist practice, namely, hearing the correct teaching, believing it, keeping the precepts, engaging in meditation, practicing assiduously, renouncing one's attachments, and reflecting on oneself. It's from the On the Treasure Tower Go show. Everybody's with me? Nichiren, in his writing, interprets the treasure tower in several interrelated ways, equating it with the law of Myoho Renge-kyo, with the Gohonzon, or the object of devotion, and with one's life itself. Let me say that again, I kind of butchered it. Nichiren, in his writings, interprets the treasure tower in several interrelated ways, equating it with the law of Myoho Renge-kyo, with the Gohonzon, or object of devotion, and with one's life. For example, he tells a disciple, a Butsubo is therefore the treasure tower itself, and the treasure tower is a Butsubo himself. No other knowledge is purposeful. Now let's go back up here to this, the 7 treasures, okay? Namely, hearing the correct teaching, which would correlate to hearing the name and the words of the truth, right? That's hearing Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Believing it is the beginning of faith. Keeping the precepts means that you're actually chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo every day. That's the only precept in Nichiren Buddhism, right? Yes. Engaging in meditation is the process of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to the Gohonzon, okay? Practicing assiduously means that you're actually seeking to attain the state of Buddhahood in your present form. Right? You're going through the 6 stages of practice, right? And then renouncing one's attachments and reflecting on oneself is to see oneself as the Buddha. You know, you're not practicing for things in any way, shape, or form anymore. The only thing that you're practicing for is to reveal your identity and help others discover their own true identity. All right? So, the next one, we go to page 119. The 3 great secret laws. Why are they secret?
Because they were hidden in the depth of the
Lotus Sutra and had
and
never been revealed before. That's
yeah.
why they're called secret, okay? And what is the predication of these 3 great secret laws? What's so special about those 3 great secret laws? They're the manner by which all Buddhas attain Buddhahood. All right? All Buddhas attain Buddhahood through the 3 great secret laws. The core principles of Nichiren Daishonin's teachings are the object of devotion of the essential teaching, the Gohonzon, the Daimoku, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the essential teaching, and the sanctuary of the essential teaching. Here, essential teaching refers to the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and not to the essential teaching or the latter 14 chapters of the Lotus Sutra. The 3 great secret laws represent Nichiren's embodiment of the mystic law, to which he was enlightened and manifest fully in his life in a form that all people can practice and thereby gain access to that law within their own lives. He associated the 3 great secret laws with the 3 types of learning set forth in Buddhism: precepts, meditation, and wisdom. Okay, specifically, the object of devotion corresponds to meditation. The sanctuary, or kaidan, literally means platform, corresponds to precepts, and the daimoku to wisdom. Because embracing this object of devotion, called the Gohonzon, is the only precept in Nichiren's teaching. The place where the Gohonzon is enshrined corresponds to the place where one's vows to observe the Buddhist precepts. The ordination platform, or sanctuary of the essential teaching, exists. The daimoku of the essential teaching indicates the invocation of, or chanting of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with faith in the object of devotion. It includes chanting for oneself and teaching it to others, the Jigyo Keita we just already talked about. Yeah. They are secret because they are teachings that had never been previously revealed. They were hidden in the subtext or in the depths of the lines of the Lotus Sutra until Nichiren, through his vow and practice, revealed them for the sake of the happiness of all humankind. Okay? For Earth. All right, going on, then skipping over one more set of pages to page 121. True cause and true effect. In the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha reveals that although people have long believed he attained enlightenment for the first time in his present life, that is not the case. Rather, he says, It has been immeasurable, boundless, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of nayutas of kalpas since I, in fact, attained Buddhahood. Thus, he says that he first attained Buddhahood at a time in the past too remote to imagine. Until this statement, his disciples thought that he had attained enlightenment in this life as an effect of past virtuous practices carried out over previous lifetimes. He attained Buddhahood under the Bodhi tree, right? But now it appeared Shakyamuni had already been enlightened while carrying out those benevolent practices. Thus, such acts were expressions of his Buddhahood rather than the means to attain Buddhahood. He says that in the extremely remote past, he had carried out the Bodhisattva way, and at that distant time attained an enduring life state of Buddhahood. In light of this revelation, Shakyamuni's original enlightenment in the remote past came to be known as true effect, the effect of Buddhahood. Nichiren Daishonin identified the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as the true cause, explaining that it enabled not only Shakyamuni, but all Buddhas to attain enlightenment. Moreover, it makes it possible for all human beings to do so. It is the fundamental law that has existed in the universe and in all life since time without beginning. And that goes back to, again, these three great secret laws as well, right? What is time without beginning? Kuan Ganjo. From the viewpoint of the true effect, Buddhahood is still a result of causes piled up over time. The effect of Buddhahood comes in some distant lifetime. But from the standpoint of true cause, Buddhahood is recognized as an eternally present potential within human life at each moment. Chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with faith and determination immediately invokes the true cause, bringing forth one's innate Buddha nature. This is called the simultaneity of cause and effect, to go from the 9 worlds to have the 10th world included. Both true cause and true effect exist together in a single moment. The moment, the present moment, and every moment thereafter are transformed for the better by the wisdom and vitality of one's emerging Buddhahood. In Nichiren Buddhism, Nichiren and his teaching are referred to respectively as the teacher and the Buddhism of true cause, while Shakyamuni and his teachings are referred to as the teacher and the Buddhism of true effect. Everybody's with me? Okay, we're going on to page 123. We already read this. I read it from the actual volume 3 of the Expedient Means lectures, okay? Do you remember all that? So I'm just going to read this box. It's shorter than what I read you last time. On page 123 of the end of chapter 11 here. In his lecture on the Expedient Means of the Lifespan chapters of the Lotus Sutra, volume 3, SGI President Ikeda refers to the practice of the Bodhisattva way as the practice of true cause. He states, our Buddhist practice is not one of revering true effect, since embracing the mystic law is in itself enlightenment. When we embrace the Gohonzon, we can immediately manifest the world of Buddhahood in our lives. It's up to us as to how long that takes, right? It's a matter of perception, but it's also a matter of us perceiving. The Bodhisattva practice of the Buddhism of true cause is to direct ourselves toward the 9 worlds while basing ourselves on the life of Buddhahood. Let me say that again. The Bodhisattva practice of the Buddhism of true cause is to direct ourselves toward the 9 worlds while basing ourselves on the life of Buddhahood. What does that mean? What is he saying there? First of all, the key point is the Bodhisattva practice of the Buddhism of true cause. Now, we're practicing the Buddhism of true cause as we just discussed, right? And we're bodhisattvas of the earth, right? So this is talking about the Bodhisattva practice that the bodhisattvas of the earth utilize, right? For the sake of revealing their innate Buddhahood, right? So he says, the Bodhisattva practice of the Buddhism of true cause is to direct ourselves toward the 9 worlds. What's the 9 worlds? Daily life. While basing ourselves on the life of Buddhahood. While basing ourselves on the Gohonzon. Okay? That's what that said. It is, it might be said, to dive headlong into the mundane reality of society dominated by the 9 worlds, based on the life of Buddhahood, based on the life of the Bodhisattva of the earth. All right? In other words, our practice entails constantly going back and forth between the practice for oneself of reciting the sutra and chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and the practice for others of spreading the mystic law, or behaving in a manner in daily life that reflects this attractive thing we want to attract them to, right? The key to manifesting the world of Buddhahood lies in this continuing activity, which means what? What do you have to do to manifest the world of Buddhahood lies in this continuing activity? What is he talking about? What's the key here of that sentence? The key is the consistency of your daily practice, because your daily practice is what creates, right here. That's what creates directing ourselves toward the 9 worlds while basing ourselves on the life of Buddhahood. That's what that is. All right? In other words, our practice entails constantly going back and forth between the practice of oneself, reciting the sutra and chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and the practice for others of spreading the mystic law. The key to manifesting the world of Buddhahood lies in this continuing activity on a daily basis. Accordingly, the Buddhism of true cause exists in the way of life, the practice of ceaselessly striving to improve one's immediate everyday surroundings and to carry the age and society forward. Did you understand what that said? According to the Buddhism of the Buddhism of true cause exists in a way of life, in the way of life of the Bodhisattva of the earth. The practice, which means daily activity, daily chanting in front of the Gohonzon, mugi-washing faith, doubt-free faith, of ceaselessly striving to improve. So that means we're never in front of the Gohonzon like, I'm cool. We're constantly utilizing our wisdom to perceive the things that we can improve on and ever more radiate the reality and the truth and the strength and the nobility of our character as Buddhas. Right? This is something that grows over the course of our life. All right? And we're ceaselessly striving to improve one's immediate everyday surroundings. What is that? Striving to achieve Kosen Rufu. That would be, again, Jigyo Keita again kicking in, right? And to carry the age and society forward, to bring it to the realization of Kosen Rufu, the actualization of Kosen Rufu. Everybody's with me?
Yes.
All right, we've already read this whole study guide. Going on to chapter 12. 130 is the next gray box. One of the key elements of this Gosho, changing poison into medicine. All right? The principle. This principle demonstrates that earthly desires and suffering can be transformed into benefit and enlightenment by virtue of the power of the mystic law. But what's the key word there? In that sense, you got it, baby, because you flipped it. You didn't take one thing and get rid of it and then try to replace it with something else. You brought out the enlightened aspect of that and got rid of the non-enlightened aspect of it. Okay. This phrase is found in a passage of Nagarjuna's treatise on the great perfection of wisdom, which mentions a great physician who can change poison into medicine. In this passage, Nagarjuna compares the Lotus Sutra to a great physician because the sutra opens the possibility of attaining Buddhahood to persons of the 2 vehicles or voice hearers and cause awakened ones. Other sutras condemn such persons as having scorched the seeds of Buddhahood, denying them the possibility of ever attaining enlightenment. Tentai says in the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra that persons of the 2 vehicles were given the prophecy of their enlightenment in this Lotus Sutra, means that it can change poison into medicine. This phrase is often cited to show that any limitation, problem, or suffering can be transformed eventually into the greatest happiness and fulfillment in life because you overcome all of the obstacles that you're faced with. Right?
Right.
Nothing defeats you. It makes you a badass. 132. Earthly desires are enlightenment. Okay? From the doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. But when through the loaded, this is the quote from the doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life from WND 2, page 85. Bunch of good goshos there. I should read you more of them. But when through the Lotus Sutra we meditate moment by moment on the meaning of the threefold contemplation in a single mind. What's the threefold contemplation in a single mind? Tentais meditation on how to figure out the middle way. Not non-substantiality, not temporary condition. Okay. That's the threefold. Okay. That's the three. That meditation is what got you to the point that you realized that. But when we, through the Lotus Sutra, when through the Lotus Sutra we meditate moment by moment on the meaning of threefold contemplation in a single mind and the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. Now, why does he throw those two together? The contemplative result of both of those concepts is the same. You're already a Buddha. You're already a Buddha. That's what it is. Okay? So he says, let me say it again. But when through the Lotus Sutra we meditate moment by moment on the meaning of threefold contemplation in a single mind and the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, then we come to realize. We come to an understanding on our own. We come to realize that we ourselves are the thus come one of original enlightenment. When we do that, we enter stage 6 of practice, right? Then the clouds of ignorance part and the moon of the essential nature of phenomena shines forth. We wake from dreams of delusion and the round moon of original enlightenment is seen in all its brilliance. We see that this fleshy form received in birth from our parents, this body bound by earthly desires, it has sexual desires, it has desires for everything. You know, how pure could it be? But it is none other than the thus come one who has always existed and is ever abiding, the essential nature of all phenomena. This is what is called the attainment of Buddhahood in one's present form. The realization that earthly desires are none other than enlightenment. That without those earthly desires, I would have never been driven to do the Daimoku, to have the practice, to manifest the wisdom, to realize I'm the Buddha. That's not just happy talk. Okay? And that the sufferings of birth and death are none other than nirvana. Because it's through all of those challenges that we constantly manifest the power to validate the proof of our Buddhahood. Okay? Going on to the next page, 134. Nichiren Daishonin on death. This is good. These are just 4 quotes from 4 different Goshos. If you wish to free yourself from the sufferings of birth and death, you have endured since time without beginning, and to attain without fail unsurpassed enlightenment in this lifetime, you must perceive the mystic truth that is originally inherent in all living beings. The mystic truth that is originally, that means nothing preceded that truth, and it's in all living beings, all right? This truth is Myoho Renge Kyo. It's a fundamental element of all things. Okay? The next quote, that was from On Attaining Buddhahood in This Lifetime. Then next from the record of the orally transmitted teachings. The aspect or characteristics of the threefold world are birth, aging, sickness, and death. But if we look at birth and death in terms of their true nature, there is no birth and death. Then there is no birth and death. And if there is no birth or death, then there is no ebb or flow. Not only do birth and death not exist, to look upon birth and death with repulsion and to try and escape from them is termed delusion. Birth and death are part of the natural cycle of life. They're 2 phases of the same aspect. All right? One who listens, the next Gosho is a ship across the sea of suffering. One who listens to even a sentence or phrase of the sutra and cherishes it deep within one's heart may be likened to a ship that crosses the sea of the sufferings of birth and death. Now, why does he say that? One who listens to even a sentence or phrase of the sutra. Such a small amount, even a sentence or a phrase. But what's the key? What's he qualified? Yeah, but what's he say? Let me read the whole thing again and listen to all the words. One who listens to even a sentence or phrase of the sutra and cherishes it deep in one's heart may be likened to a ship that crosses the sea of the sufferings of birth and death.
So,
If you cherish even a sentence or phrase of the Lotus Sutra deep within your heart, what will the ultimate effect of that be? If you have ever cherished even a sentence or phrase of the Lotus Sutra in your heart, can you ever go away from it?
No.
Okay. So it's going to always be there. You're going to always engage it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when you engage it, what happens? Through it, you're able to reveal your true identity, right?
Right.
Once you've revealed your true identity, what can you be likened to?
let me share.
Huh?
You be likened.
To a ship that crosses the sea of
Yes.
sufferings of birth and death.
Yeah.
Because you've done it, you've attained Buddhahood in your present form. Right? Okay. 136, a comparison of Hinayana and Mahayana. Okay? Hinayana, or Theravada. Hinayana and Mahayana are two names given to major streams of Buddhist thought. Teachings classified as Hinayana view desire and illusion as the cause of suffering and seek to extinguish them as the way to nirvana, or being blown out, the cessation of existence. Hinayana practice has as its goal the attainment of the state of arhat, a state in which one is free from the cycle of birth and rebirth and attains nirvana. There is no recognition that it is possible to attain the supreme state of Buddhahood, as the Buddha is seen as being inherently superior to ordinary people. Okay? Mahayana, or the greater vehicle, does not seek to completely extinguish desire, which it views as a natural function of life. Hinayana does. Tries to completely wipe out desire. That's the whole.
Get rid of absolute desires.
All right? Hinayana, Theravada, you're getting rid of all those desires. You're 500 rules for women, 300 rules for men. There's all kinds of stuff in there, okay? Which will help you. Oh yeah, you got to live in a certain way. It's almost a monastic dictate of how you're supposed to live. You can only do certain things and you can't do other things. It's sort of like a lot of other religions, a lot of other religious beliefs. All right, it's very constrained. That's why the Mahayanists, who were viewing this in a completely different manner, something much more altruistic, qualifying that desire is, I've got to eat. That's not something bad. If I want to eat, that's a desire. You want me to eliminate that? It didn't make sense. So that's where Mahayana sprang forth. That's what this is talking about. Wherever you're going, go and come back so I can, you need to understand this. I'll start it again. Hinayana and Mahayana are two names given to major streams of Buddhist thought because they both still exist, right?
Yes.
Teachings classified as Hinayana, or Theravada, view desire and illusion as the cause of suffering and seek to extinguish them as the way to nirvana, or emancipation, right? Their emancipation is emancipation from existence. Hinayana practice has as its goal the attainment of the state of arhat, a state in which one is free from the cycle of birth and rebirth and attains nirvana, or the cessation of existence. There is no recognition that it is possible to attain the supreme state of Buddhahood, as the Buddha is seen as being inherently superior to ordinary people. So Hinayana, you don't attain Buddhahood, all you can become is an arhat. That's what you're shooting for. Okay? Mahayana, or the greater vehicle, does not seek to completely extinguish desire, which it views as a natural function of life. Instead, it focuses on the role of the bodhisattva to lead a great many people to supreme enlightenment. It is thought that early Mahayanists considered Buddhism, as it was practiced by existing monastic orders, to be limited, calling them Hinayana or lesser vehicle. And you can see monastic orders. That's where all those rules and regulations came in. It was a very strict manner of living. Such teachings focused on the emancipation of a limited class of monks, because not everybody could live that way, right? And therefore were seen as able to transport far fewer people to the destination of enlightenment. This is why some view the designation Hinayana as originally pejorative. Okay? Because it's a name given to Theravada by the Mahayanists. It's not like I'm Hinayana. No. I'm lesser vehicle. That's nothing to be really proud of, okay? So that isn't how they convey it. Do you understand what I'm saying? All right, so the Lotus Sutra, the highest of the Mahayana teachings and the doctrinal basis of Nichiren Buddhism, reveals that Buddhahood is eternally present in all life and does not focus on rebirth in a pure land as emphasized in other Mahayana sutras. Rather, it focuses on the continuation of bodhisattva practice in the realm of ordinary beings referred to as the Sahe world, earth, the 9 worlds that we live in, right? Tentai and Nichiren Buddhism clearly held Mahayana to be superior to Hinayana. But it should be understood that Hinayana, in this case, refers to a category of scriptural content, doctrines, and principles rather than any particular Buddhist school or present-day tradition. So what is he saying there? Why did they stick that paragraph in there? I'll say it again. Let me read it again. Tentai and Nichiren Daishonin clearly held Mahayana to be superior to Hinayana. Okay? They clearly felt that this was a superior teaching, right? Or superior understanding. But it should be understood that Hinayana in this case, in the case that they viewed it as superior, refers to a category of scriptural content, doctrines, and principles, rather than any particular Buddhist school or present-day tradition. So if you're practicing Theravada Buddhism today, okay, wherever it might be, he's qualifying that we're not copping an arrogant attitude about being better than you. Okay? We're taking issue with the scriptures that you base your Theravada understanding on. Okay? Because the doctrinal conflict is in conflict with Shakyamuni's teachings from later in his life. Don't forget, he came out under the Bodhi tree. What's the first thing he preached? Flower garland, Kegon Sutra, right? Then he immediately saw he's going over everybody's head, and he dropped back. Okay? So that's the point. All right? Do you understand? In other words, he... In the regard of Tentai and all of the other scholars, he basically backed off, and then it wasn't until Nagarjuna came along that the clarity began to occur within Mahayana, that these leaps started taking steps forward, okay? So he's saying, such doctrines as earthly desires are enlightenment and the sufferings of birth and death are nirvana epitomize the difference between Hinayana and Mahayana teachings. The former views earthly desires and even the cycle of birth and death as the cause of sufferings and as obstacles to attaining enlightenment, whereas the latter views Buddhahood as inherent within all life's functions and actually the predication by which enlightenment is able to occur in your present form.
This is totally different thinking.
They're totally different thinking.
Two systems.
Yeah, well, they're two different systems from two different time periods, though.
Yeah.
That's what you've got to understand as well. Mahayana doesn't occur for hundreds of years after Hinayana, Theravada. Okay? Going into the three virtues on page 138. Okay? The three virtues are three attributes with which a Buddha is endowed. The Dharma body, wisdom, and emancipation. The Dharma body is the essential truth or principle to which the Buddha is enlightened. Wisdom refers to the Buddha's ability to perceive and understand the truth, that truth. Emancipation is the condition in which that truth and the wisdom to perceive it are essentially one, and the person is free from the realm of suffering, of the sufferings of birth and death. Now, what does that mean? Let me say it again. The three virtues are three attributes with which a Buddha is endowed. The Dharma body, wisdom, and emancipation. The Dharma body is the essential truth or principle to which the Buddha is enlightened. Okay? Wisdom refers to the Buddha's ability to perceive that truth and understands that truth. Okay? Emancipation is the freedom that comes from understanding that truth, right? Emancipation is the condition in which that truth and the wisdom to perceive it are essentially one. Okay? And the person is freed, and the person is free from the realm of the sufferings of birth and death. What does that mean?
The point
They've
is
attained Buddhahood.
attaining Buddhahood.
Yes.
Right? Emancipation
Exactly.
is liberated
Exactly. Okay, and it comes through this process of those three things being united. All right. So the three virtues correlate with various other Buddhist concepts, such as the Buddha's three bodies. Everybody knows what that is. What is it?
Dharma body, manifest body, legal body.
Right. And the three truths? We just said them a minute ago. Non-substantiality, temporary existence in the middle way, and the three paths.
Early desire, karma, and suffering.
There you go. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, here we
You
go.
just read down one. Okay. That cheater! All right. The three virtues correlate with various other Buddhist concepts, such as the Buddha's three bodies, the three truths, and the three paths. See the Soka Gakkai dictionary for descriptions of these terms. I could do that if I wanted to. In particular, Tentai taught that the three paths, earthly desires, karma, and sufferings, are in themselves the three virtues. It's that whole concept of you're not replacing them, you're flipping them. You're taking them from their diluted form to their enlightened form, right? That is, within the cycle that gives rise to suffering can be found the qualities or causes for enlightenment, absolute happiness. In this way, suffering itself can give rise to happiness. Do you know why?
You cannot be happy.
Sure did for me. Sure did for me.
You cannot be happy if you didn't know what is to be suffering.
That's true too, but also suffering can be a tremendous motivation to not accept the status quo and to have a seeking spirit about trying to improve things.
Yes.
You know, one of the biggest traps in life is to have all your desires fulfilled and not have any problems. Not have any problems, you will not advance.
So you would say suffering is motivation.
Suffering is
Creates
this.
motivation.
Suffering is an innate part of life. Suffering is an innate part of life. No one goes through life with no suffering.
Right. Yes.
Okay? Can you think of anybody that does?
I don't know.
Jesus? No, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think it was very, suffering is suffering. Okay? But what he's talking about is the fact that suffering can then be a motivation that expands your perception so that same experience is no longer suffering. This is the key. All right? That's the flip. Same brain, same action, different effect.
Right.
Okay? So let me go back up here. The three virtues correlates with various other Buddhist concepts such as the Buddha's three bodies, the three truths, and the three paths. In particular, Tentai taught that the three paths, earthly desires, karma, and suffering, are in themselves the three virtues because they all lead, it's through that mechanism of reality, okay? That is, within the cycle that gives rise to suffering can be found the qualities or causes for enlightenment, absolute happiness. In this way, suffering itself can give rise to happiness. So this is the whole concept again. Good doesn't always just only produce good. Sometimes bad can produce good. That's what that's talking about, right? That's the Buddhism of sowing. The principle called changing poison into medicine also refers to the transformation of the three paths into the three virtues. When you're taking something that is a negative and overcoming it, and in that process not only being victorious over that difficulty, but having it instill in you wisdom. Okay? Nichiren Daishonin writes, in explaining the word myo, Nagarjuna says it is like a great physician who can change poison into medicine. What is the poison? It is the three paths of earthly desires, karma, and suffering that are our lot, which he said, in other words, everybody experiences those. What is the medicine? It is the three virtues of the Dharma, body, wisdom, and emancipation. And what does it mean to change poison into medicine? It means to transform the three paths into the three virtues. From our favorite Gosho there, what it means to hear the Buddha vehicle for the first time, which is on video. Nichiren goes on to associate this transformation with the principle of attaining Buddhahood in one's present form. So he qualifies that when you get to the point that you've done this flip to that point, you've taken the three paths, you've made them the three virtues, you've attained Buddhahood in your present form. Okay? Going on to, that's the end of chapter 12.
Yes.
So then going on to chapter 13.
Be born in
President Ikeda on page 148. We already read chapter 13 last week.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so to break through the shell of the lesser self and focus on the eternal thought in, okay, it's on page 148. You with me? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. President Ikeda, SGI President Ikeda on faith. To break through the shell of the lesser self and focus on the eternal thought in the innermost depths of our lives. That is what it means to have faith in the mystic law. Whoa, unpack that one. What did he just say there? To break through the shell of the lesser self. What is that?
To be awakened.
To grow up.
To a great degree, yes. To grow up in faith. To grow up in faith. To go from first stage of practice, second stage, third stage, fourth stage, now fifth stage. This is fifth stage. That's grown up. Fifth stage. Okay? Because you're practicing for other people. Okay? You're practicing for the sake of the propagation of law in fifth stage. You've embraced the teaching of the teacher. And you're motivated to, right? To break through the shell of the lesser self, common mortal, and that's all common mortalness, really. That you're only thinking about yourself. You're chanting for benefits. You're not really worried about kosen rufu or the propagation, right? And to focus, he says, when you break through the shell of the lesser self, and then at that point focus on the eternal thought in the innermost depths of our lives. What is that? What's the eternal thought in the innermost depths of our lives?
Faith without doubt.
Almost. The true nature of life.
The true nature of
The
life.
true nature of life. The heritage of the ultimate law of life and death. We're not aware that that's what that thought is, but we all have that thought. We all wonder. All religions are based on that innermost thought in life. He's talking about, he isn't just talking about us. Eternal thought in the innermost depths of our lives. All people question, why was I born? Why are things the way they are? Who created this? Where did it come from? All that kind of stuff.
Right.
All right? That is what it means to have faith in the mystic law. When we find the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is the origin of all things in our life. Do you understand? All right, so ultimately it comes down to awareness. We need to awaken to the fact that we are the mystic law to establish the awareness that we are living out our lives based on the mystic law over the three existences, past, present, and future. What did that just say? Let me do both paragraphs
That
together.
you are a Buddha in your present form.
Yeah. But
We are the mystic.
We are the mystic law, that there is no separation between us and Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. That obviously that would be to attain Buddhahood in your present form, but that's really what he's qualifying here. Ultimately, it comes down to awareness. Awareness that there is no separation between us and the Gohonzon is really what he's talking about. We need to awaken to the fact, because a lot of people chant and chant and chant, and they're chanting to a scroll that's in a box that's in front of them, and it's outside of them. It is not one with their life. They are not aware of the oneness of it as a oneness of their life. It's still external. You can't get to Buddhahood as long as you perceive it as external. That's why he's talking about to break through the shell of the lesser self. The lesser self is the self that sees as it external. That's practice 1 through stage 1 through 4. Okay? 5 is when you're beginning to understand the truth and you give a shit about the truth. You've devoted your life to pay back what you've already seen compile as benefit. Let me continue. I start at the top again. To break through the shell of the lesser self and focus on the eternal thought in the innermost depths of our lives is what it means to have faith in the mystic law. To break through and become a Buddha, to start having Buddha thoughts, to be a bodhisattva of the earth, to be a disciple of the original teacher with a mission, who's taken a vow. That's what that's all talking about. Ultimately, it comes down to awareness. We need to awaken to the fact that we are the mystic law, to establish the awareness that we are living out our lives based on the mystic law over the 3 existences of past, present, and future. So what's that saying? That we've always been this, and that we will always be this. This is our original state. He's talking about coming to an awareness of our original state, which never changes. Never changes eternally. Okay?
There's no time.
Everybody's with me now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I get a little
So
bit.
this is eternity. Yeah.
Yeah. All right? So it means it never ends.
Yeah.
Right. So, Second Soka Gakkai President Josei Toda said, our existence as ordinary common mortals is the secret and mystic expedient. What does he mean by the secret and mystic expedient? It's the expedient no one knows. He said the truth that we are Buddhas. What is the secret and expedient, mystic expedient? The truth is that we are Buddhas. Okay. Second Soka Gakkai President Josei Toda said, our existence as ordinary common mortals is the secret and expedient and mystic expedient. Our existence as common mortals. So our existence in the 9 worlds is the secret and mystic expedient. What's an expedient? Something that isn't really the truth but gets you to the truth. Okay? The 9 world life we're born into. All right? That's a secret and mystic expedient, because what is it really? It's a vessel for a 10th world Buddha, full-blown, full form, always has been, always will be. But you don't know that when you're born, do you?
No.
You don't know that until you've reached that awareness that he's talking about in the previous paragraph.
It takes a lifetime.
What?
Pretty much.
Sometimes more, sometimes less. Pretty much. Sure takes more than 5 or 10 years, I would think. Okay? So the point that do you see what he's saying? Okay. Let me just continue. Second Soka Gakkai President Josei Toda said, our existence as ordinary common mortals is the secret and expedient the secret and mystic expedient, the truth that we are Buddhas. The Gohonzon is also enshrined in our hearts. So what is he saying by saying that? Is there a scroll of paper in my thorax somewhere? What's he saying by that then?
No difference.
We are one. The source of our existence as common mortals in the 9 worlds is this original state. All right? The Gohonzon is also enshrined in our hearts. In other words, the core of Nichiren Buddhism lies in the conviction. Now, lies in the core of Nichiren Buddhism lies in the conviction. What did he just say there? What does he mean by it lies in a conviction? It means you must have doubt-free faith in the truth of this fact of the statement that I'm about to finish the sentence on. That's a conviction. That's something nobody can take from you. That's something you'll argue with them until the last moment. You'll never give in to that argument. You'll fight. You'll never give in on that fight. A conviction is something that cannot be taken from you, right? The Gohonzon is also enshrined in our hearts. In other words, the core of Nichiren Buddhism lies in the conviction that the Gohonzon enshrined in our Buddhist altar is identical to our own lives. Not theoretically or figuratively or in any other manner, but literally. 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 You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So at that point in time, you can no longer view the Gohonzon as being something outside of you. If you really understand what that just said, then you can no longer view it as outside of yourself.
Yes.
You follow?
Yes.
Okay. It is precisely by challenging and overcoming difficulties. Thank you. I'm about to knock it off the table. It is precisely by challenging and overcoming difficulties as ordinary people that we can demonstrate the greatness of the mystic law. It starts out as just accumulating benefits from chanting. We're just chanting for ourselves. We don't even know we have no idea where this train's taken us, ultimately, frankly. It is precisely by challenging and overcoming difficulties as ordinary people that we can demonstrate the greatness of the mystic law. We can show actual proof. Our being ordinary people is an expedient means that enables us to fulfill this mission. If we were here as Buddhas, everybody going, yeah, but shit, you're a Buddha. I can't do that. So we manifest just like everybody else in order to lead them to the same thing that's buried in their life that hasn't been revealed yet. Do you understand? Yes. To be defeated by suffering and filled with complaint is to be shackled by our karma. When we are squarely facing our suffering, we are able to transform it into mission. We can turn it into, I'm going to overcome this. Okay, I'm going to prove the power of the Gohonzon. You can say to the Gohonzon, I must overcome this in order to prove the power of the law. Everything depends on our determination. Opening our eyes to the Buddha within. Opening our eyes to the Buddha within, which is saying to begin to see ourselves as the Buddha, as the teaching states we are, to the mystic law within. That is the linchpin of faith and the foundation of Buddhism. Abutsabo on page 150. Indo Teomori changed his name to Abutsabo upon becoming a lay priest in the Pure Land sect. Butsu is derived from Amida Butsu or Amida Buddha. How he came to live on Sado is uncertain. Pardon me. Most likely he was a native, though there is speculation he was exiled there for political reasons. Nichiren Daishonin openly criticized the Pure Land teachings, earning himself numerous enemies in the process. When Nichiren came to Sado, Abutsabo met with him in debate, intent on disproving Nichiren's views, but Nichiren defeated him, and Abutsabo and his wife, the lay nun Shinichi, moved by Nichiren's character, immediately became his disciples. The couple would frequently support Nichiren with food and clothing throughout the 2 years of the Sado exile, and they continued to do so even after Nichiren moved to the Minobu area. Abutsabo even made the long journey to Minobu to visit Nichiren 3 times. He was 91 years old when he died. Abutsabo and the lay nun Shinichi received several letters from Nichiren. Perhaps the most famous of these is On the Treasure Tower, in which Nichiren states, Abutsabo is therefore the treasure tower itself, and the treasure tower is Abutsabo himself. No other knowledge is purpose. No other knowledge is purposeful, indicating a strong confidence in Abutsabo's Buddha nature. And that really all you have to do is to understand that fact. Okay, page 152. Key concepts from the lifespan chapter. Before the Lotus Sutra, it was believed that Shakyamuni attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree after having spent countless lifetimes as a bodhisattva in the service of various Buddhas, as he was making up stories about doing, right? The sutra states, however, that it had been an immeasurable length of time since he had in fact attained Buddhahood. In the lifespan chapter he says that, right? He says, everything I've been talking about has been an expedient means. When Shakyamuni revealed this, the whole notion of bodhisattva practice as a means to attaining enlightenment was turned on its head. Now, Shakyamuni's bodhisattva practice could be seen as his Buddhahood manifested in his behavior as a human being. Okay? The clarification of Shakyamuni's innate Buddhahood is the basis for the concept of the mutual possession of the 10 worlds, which was created by Chentai. So way after this point, right? Is it going to be figured out? But it's based on that, which teaches that the states of life from the suffering of hell to the joy of Buddhahood exist in all people. We're all the same. It was once believed that upon death a Buddha would enter the extinction of nirvana and go to a pure Buddha land. But the lifespan chapter reverses this notion as well within its depiction of Shakyamuni saying to his disciples, ever since attaining Buddhahood in the remote past, I have been constantly in this Sahe world, preaching the law, teaching, and converting. Shakyamuni also states that were he to remain in the world in his present form, his disciples would grow too reliant upon him. Instead, he appears to enter nirvana so that his disciples will arouse a desire to seek his teachings. The Buddha's intent, the desire to save living beings from suffering and to lead them to enlightenment, is mentioned in other sutras. But without the mutual possession of the 10 worlds, the goal of attaining enlightenment in one's present form could not be achieved. Thus, the Buddha's true intent to cause living beings to gain entry into the unsurpassed way and quickly acquire the body of a Buddha would not have been elucidated without the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren Daishonin emphasizes the importance of this chapter, stating, were it not for the presence of the lifespan chapter among the teachings of Shakyamuni, they would be like heavens without the sun and moon, a kingdom without a king, the mountains and seas without treasures, or a person without a soul. This being so, without the lifespan chapter, all the sutras would be meaningless. 5 Guides to Propagation. I believe we're almost there. We are. Okay? Page 154. 5 Guides for Propagation. Nichiren Daishonin established 5 criteria for correctly propagating his teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Everybody knows these? Teaching. Nichiren emphasizes a correct understanding of the teaching, recognizing the differences among many Buddhist teachings, and discerning which are profound and which are superficial, while maintaining the awareness that the Lotus Sutra stands supreme among all sutras. This is because Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, implicit in the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra, is the teaching that enables all people in the latter day of the law to attain Buddhahood. Everybody's with me on that one, right? Capacity. This refers to the life tendency of the people, the nature of their connection to Buddhism or lack thereof. This is really talking about a karmic kind of a thing, and their ability to understand and believe in the Buddhist teachings. This is a 1 by 1 by 1 kind of a deal, right? In short, to understand the people's capacity means knowing by what teaching they can attain Buddhahood. Time. The development of Buddhism following Shakyamuni's death is divided into 3 periods known as the former, middle, and latter days of the law, Shoho, Zoho, and Mappo. The law that is spread in the latter day of the law, the present time period, is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the essence of the Lotus Sutra. Country. This refers to discerning the nature of a particular nation's or society's connection to Buddhism. Nichiren states that some countries actively slander the correct teaching. Some are completely ignorant of it. Some are exclusively Hinayana, some exclusively Mahayana, and others both Hinayana and Mahayana. He concludes that the mystic law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo can save all people, even including those who oppose it, which is why we do Shakabuku, right? Sequence. The point of this criterion is that one should not propagate a teaching inferior to those that have already spread. All right? Excerpted and adapted from the Soka Gakkai Dictionary of Buddhism. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, summarizing these 5 guides for propagation. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the key to awakening the Buddhahood of all people. but the most effective means for introducing someone to Buddhist practice will vary from person to person. Nichiren's primary intent in creating these criteria was to indicate why he considered chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to be the correct practice for the latter day of the law. These guides also apply to sharing Buddhism with people around us, reminding us to develop the wisdom necessary to understand each person's needs. We should be aware of what forms of Buddhism, if any, people have encountered, as well as their cultural and religious background. We should take heed of how best to encourage people in terms of what they know and understand about the causes of the problems they face, confident that we can bring them to awaken their Buddhahood through chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So that then finishes off all of the gray boxes from chapters 11, 12, and 13. Next week, we will read the study guide to chapter 13 as a recap of that chapter, and then we'll go into the last chapter. And the last chapter is not even really what I would consider chapter 14, because it's not. It's really, this is more about Daisaku Ikeda lecturing. Okay? This is going to be President Ikeda's points on the Buddhist view of death, the vows of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, Itai Doshin, the sufferings of birth and death are nirvana, and earthly desires are enlightenment, mentor and disciple, and we're done. Okay?
Okay.
So next week we finish this,
Okay.
and I hope you've all enjoyed this as much as I have. I look forward to one more week of it, though. I'm going to miss it. This has been a great, great lecture series. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Good night. See you next week.
Thank